I'm equally concerned about the potential rise of a tech industrial complex that could pose real dangers for our country as well.
Well, good evening. I just got done listening to President Biden's farewell address to the nation. This is something that all presidents have done going back to the days of George Washington. A lot of it was what we expected, touting the accomplishments of the last 4 years, the handling of the COVID pandemic, the millions of jobs created, especially in manufacturing, and the increase in wages in the country, which was reversing a trend seen here for some time. But what is going to get most of the talk is going to be the president's discussion of a tech industrial complex.
I'm equally concerned about the potential rise of a tech industrial complex that could pose real dangers for our country as well.
Now, what does he mean by that? Well, a tech industrial complex calls back to President Dwight Eisenhower. In 1961, during his farewell address, he referred to a military-industrial complex, concerned that there was too much consolidation of power in the military and that it was being used as a money-making venture rather than a peacekeeping venture. In this case, Biden used a word that a lot of critics on the left have used and a lot of people concerned about the incoming Trump administration have discussed: oligarchy. Now, what is oligarchy? Well, that's something that we see described in Russia a lot, because although Russia is technically more democratic now, there's only one party that has power, Putin's party, and he works in lockstep with the richest men and women in Russia, who seem to call the shots, and everything seems to happen to the benefit of them. That is what President Biden is warning about here. Now, there's been some people talking about how Elon Musk, the world's richest man, spent $250 million in the final weeks of the Trump campaign, and that has netted him $140 billion in additional wealth since the election, even though his companies haven't improved or made more money. In fact, there was a drop in sales by Tesla, yet their stock goes up. Well, a lot of people believe it's because Elon Musk is cozy with President Trump and will almost undoubtedly, in their view, get policies and laws enacted in favor of his ventures, including an elimination of possible regulations that could impede his work. Of course, that raises concerns of, were those regulations in place to protect worker safety or protect worker jobs? Well, we'll have to see. But this is what President Biden was warning about: his deep concern that there's too much consolidation of political power in the hands of not just a president, but the select few they choose to listen to. And without naming names, we are seeing that. We are seeing not only Elon Musk cozy up to the president, giving him a lot of money. We've seen Facebook do an about-face on fact-checking, something that the president called out specifically as a danger to Americans being poisoned by misinformation.
Americans are being buried under an avalanche of misinformation and disinformation, enabling the abuse of power. The free press is crumbling. Editors are disappearing. Social media is giving up on fact-checking. The truth is smothered by lies told for power and for profit. We must hold the social platforms accountable to protect our children, our families, and our very democracy from the abuse of power.
Now, in my experience as a reporter in learning about our economic system, especially after the Great Recession in 2008, and the political system for some 20-some years, we are seeing that trend. I like to tell people that it goes back to the Citizens United ruling in 2010. This was a ruling that said that free speech was the same as spending money, and that corporations had the right to practice free speech, i.e., giving money to politicians. We've seen the floodgates open. We were talking about presidential campaigns in the $100 million range 20 years ago. Now we're up to several billion dollars to run for president. Well, that money isn't coming from the American people who are giving small dollar donations. They're coming from people like Elon Musk. They're coming from people like the Koch brothers, the Adelsons, the Soroses. And it's a constant escalation because each side can't afford to lose. Now, how do we change that? Well, in fact, Iowa Senator Tom Harkin in his last year in the Senate, submitted a bill to pass a constitutional amendment in order to reverse that ruling by the Supreme Court and enact political campaign finance reforms. But it never saw the light of day. Republicans immediately shot it down, calling it an attack on the First Amendment, which is true if you believe the Supreme Court that money equals free speech and that wealthy people and wealthy companies can speak all they want with their money. But the question is it worth what's happening to our political system? And is it helping or hurting how our political system and our government helps the majority of Americans? That's a question that's being raised right now as the money continues to pour in. And that is what President Biden was warning about. That, coupled with misinformation that he and others feel is leading millions of Americans to literally vote against their own interests. Now, President Trump will take the oath of office again on January 20th. We will see what he does. We will see what executive orders and what policies he enacts. Also, raising the specter of that fear of a consolidation of power, we learned just before the president's speech tonight that the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Congressman Mike Rogers, Republican of Ohio, was removed from his leadership post. And apparently it was because President Trump is not happy with the fact that he has not supported the president on everything. He was quickly denying the reports of people eating dogs and cats in his state of Ohio. And he also is a supporter of the war in Ukraine. His removal from the House Intelligence leadership certainly sends a signal of loyalty above all else. It's fair to say there are plenty of Democratic leaders in the House and Senate that President Biden doesn't always see eye to eye. And that goes with any party. We've seen that in the Republican Party as well. But to see a president put this kind of pressure on that other check and balance, which is the legislative branch, is one of those things that is cause for concern. So ultimately, President Trump, like all other presidents, will be judged by his actions. He won't be judged by a court of law because he won the election, and he won't be judged in the immediate, but history will give the final assessment. But for now, that history is our present, and what we see happen over the next 4 years will certainly shape not only the country that we live in, but will shape the country in our future. Because if President Trump continues to succeed and continues to drive support, we're going to see others follow him. People who don't like MAGA have to accept the fact that it doesn't end with President Trump leaving office. It's here to stay. It is a powerful base that many politicians will try and take advantage of. Now, whether that's for the betterment or the destruction of the country, we will have to see. But again, the ultimate power lies with the voters. This is what the voters chose, and they'll get to respond in 2 years with the midterms, and in 4 years when we have an open race for president for the first time since 2016. So it was a powerful speech, at times emotional. President Biden has been serving in office for over 50 years, and we don't know what will happen. But he certainly has significant concerns, and he made that abundantly clear in tonight's address. I want to know what you think. Go ahead and leave your thoughts in the comment section below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel as we continue to follow the transition and the months ahead as policy gets enacted, and we will see how much of President Trump's main promises are kept. For now, though, I'm Nick Weig. Thanks for watching.